The bridge of the USS Defiance hummed with quiet activity as the massive human cruiser moved through space toward the Kepler 442 system. Commander Jake Sullivan stood behind the captain's chair, watching the stars drift past through the main viewport. His weathered hands gripped the railing as he studied the tactical display showing their destination. "How long until we reach the combat zone?" Jake asked his navigation officer. 42 minutes, sir," came the reply from Lieutenant Bobby Chen at the helm. The young officer's fingers danced across his control panel, making small adjustments to their course. Jake nodded and turned to his weapons officer. "Amy, what's the status on our laser batteries?" Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her console, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. "All primary laser systems are online and ready, Commander. We've got full power to all energy weapons. The new plasma torpedoes are loaded and armed." "Good." Jake walked over to the science station where Chief Science Officer Lisa Grant was reviewing sensor data. "What do we know about the Zephyrian forces waiting for us?" Lisa pushed her glasses up her nose and pointed to her screen. "Intelligence says they have 12 warships in the system, all equipped with advanced energy shields and plasma weapons. Their technology is impressive, probably more advanced than ours in some areas." Standing nearby, the ship's alien observer listened carefully to every word. Zektar was a tall, crystal-like being from the Altarian Collective. His body sparkled with blue light, and his large eyes could see things humans could not. The Galactic Alliance had sent him to watch how humans fought in space battles. "Your species shows much promise," Zektar said to Lisa, his voice sounding like wind chimes. "Though I noticed some odd choices in your military preparations." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Before Zektar could answer, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "All Marine units report to the armory for final equipment check. Repeat, all Marines to the armory." "I should go," said Sergeant Pete Morris, who had been standing quietly near the bridge entrance. The tough Marine had scars on his face from previous battles. "We need to make sure everything is ready." Jake watched Pete leave, then turned back to Zektar. "You were saying something about odd choices?" The alien's crystal body shimmered as he spoke. "I have observed your Marines preparing for battle. They carry energy weapons, as expected, but they also load themselves with primitive, projectile weapons and metal bullets. This seems unnecessary when laser technology is so effective." Lisa smiled. "Those aren't primitive weapons, they're backup systems." "Backup systems?" Zektar's voice rose in pitch, showing his confusion. "But why carry inferior technology when you have superior energy weapons?" "You'd have to ask Pete about that," Lisa said. "Marines have their own way of thinking about these things." Down in the armory, Pete Morris moved between rows of weapons racks. His Marines were checking their gear one final time before the battle. Each soldier carried a standard plasma rifle, but they also had older-style kinetic weapons strapped to their backs. "Listen up," Pete called out to his troops. "We're going into a standard laser fight, but I want everyone carrying full ammunition, loads for the backup weapons. Check your bullet counts and make sure your magazines are properly loaded." Private Danny Walsh raised his hand. "Sergeant, why are we carrying these old guns? The plasma rifles work better." Pete walked over to Danny, his boots clicking on the metal floor. "Because, son, you never know when you might need them. My grandfather fought in the Earth Wars with weapons like these. Sometimes the old ways work when the new ways fail." "But the Zephyrians use energy shields," said Corporal Sue Peterson. "Our laser weapons are designed to get through those shields." "That's right," Pete nodded. "But what if something goes wrong? What if our energy weapons stop working? You always need a backup plan." The Marines continued their preparation, each one loading metal bullets into magazines and checking the mechanical sights on their kinetic rifles. To them, this was normal procedure, even if their alien observer found it strange. Back on the bridge, Zektar was making notes on a small device. His report would go back to the Galactic Alliance describing human military practices. So far, he was not impressed. "The humans show technological backwardness," he spoke into his recorder. "They cling to obsolete weapons systems even when better technology is available. This may explain why they are so new to space warfare compared to other species. Communications Officer Beth Turner looked up from her station. Commander, we're receiving transmissions from the Zephyrian fleet. They know we're coming. What are they saying? Jake asked. Beth listened to her earpiece for a moment. They're discussing our approach. It sounds like they're not worried about us. One of their commanders mentioned something about primitive, human technology being easy to defeat. Jake smiled grimly. Let them think that. Amy, are all weapons ready? Yes, sir. Laser batteries charged, plasma torpedoes armed, and all targeting systems online. And the backup systems? Amy paused. The backup systems are also ready, Commander. Zektar noticed this exchange but did not understand its meaning. To him, backup systems meant secondary energy weapons or spare parts for the main guns. He had no idea that the humans were talking about something completely different. Approaching the combat zone now, Bobby announced from the helm. Zephyrian ships are moving into attack formation. Jake straightened his uniform and walked to the center of the bridge. All hands, this is the commander. We are about to engage the enemy. Remember your training and trust your equipment. All of it. The USS Defiance and her escort ships moved forward into the darkness of space, where 12 Zephyrian warships waited for them. The alien vessels were sleek and beautiful, their hulls glowing with energy. They looked more advanced than the human ships, which were boxy and practical. War Commander Vithka stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the humans approach. His reptilian features showed amusement as he studied the enemy fleet. They move so slowly, he hissed to his weapons officer. And their ships look so crude. This will be an easy victory. Should we power up the Cascade weapon? Asked his second-in-command. Not yet, Vithkas replied. Let us see what these humans can do with their primitive technology first. We can always use our secret weapon if needed. The two fleets moved closer to each other, laser batteries charging and shields powering up. Neither side knew that this battle would change everything they thought they knew about space warfare. In the human fleet, Marines checked their ammunition, one last time, while alien observers wondered why they bothered with such old-fashioned weapons. Soon, everyone would understand. The first laser blast lit up the darkness between the two fleets like a bright red line. Commander Jake Sullivan gripped his chair as the USS Defiance shook from the impact. Return fire, Jake ordered. All laser batteries, target their lead, ship. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez pressed several buttons on her weapons console. Blue beams of energy shot out from the human cruiser, striking the Zephyrian flagship. The alien ship's shields glowed bright white as they absorbed the attack. Direct hit, but their shields are holding, Amy reported. Those are some strong energy barriers. Across the battlefield, more ships from both fleets began firing. The space between them filled with colored lights as laser beams and plasma bolts flew back and forth. The human ships were tough and could take damage, but the Zephyrian vessels were faster and had better shields. On the Zephyrian flagship, War Commander Vithkas watched the battle with growing confidence. His green scales gleamed under the bridge lights as he studied the tactical display. Their weapons are weaker than expected, he said to his crew. Our shields can handle their laser fire with ease. Continue the attack. The alien ships moved, in complex patterns, their sleek hulls dancing through space as they fired their weapons. Every shot from their plasma cannons hit with deadly accuracy. One human destroyer took a direct hit and had to fall back, smoke pouring from its damaged hull. Back on the USS Defiance, Chief Science Officer Lisa Grant monitored the battle from her station. The numbers on her screen were not good. Commander, we're taking heavy damage across the fleet, she called out. The Zephyrians have better shields than our intelligence report suggested. Our laser weapons aren't getting through as well as we hoped. Jake frowned as he watched another human ship get hit. How long can we keep this up? At this rate, maybe 20 more minutes before we start losing ships, Lisa answered. Zektar, the crystal alien observer, stood near the science station watching everything. His blue light pulsed with what humans might have called excitement. This was exactly what he had expected to see. Human technology proving inferior to more advanced alien weapons. Perhaps your species should consider upgrading your energy weapons, Zektar suggested. The Zephyrians clearly have superior technology. Maybe, Lisa said, but she didn't sound worried. Let's see how this plays out. The battle continued for 30 minutes. Human ships fired their lasers while Zephyrian vessels responded with plasma cannons. Both sides took damage, but the aliens were winning. Their shields protected them better and their weapons hit harder. War Commander Vithkus was pleased with the progress. His fleet had only lost one small ship, while the humans had 3 vessels badly damaged. It is time to end this, he decided. Activate the cascade weapon. His weapons officer looked up with surprise. Sir, are you sure? The cascade pulse will disable all energy weapons in the area, including our own. Yes, but we can recharge our systems faster than they can, Vithkas explained. Once their laser batteries are offline, we can move in close and finish them with our backup plasma weapons. It will be a quick victory. The Zephyrian flagship began to glow with a strange purple light. Deep inside the ship, a massive weapon was powering up. This was their secret weapon, a device that could send out an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to overload any energy-based system within 50 kilometers. On the USS Defiance, Chief Engineer Carlos Martinez noticed something wrong with his readings. Commander, I'm picking up massive energy buildup from the Zephyrian flagship, he called from his engineering station. It's not like anything I've seen before. What kind of energy? Jake asked. Carlos checked his instruments again. It looks like they're building up for some kind of electromagnetic discharge, a really big one. Lisa looked up from her console with alarm. An EMP weapon? If they fire that thing, it could overload all our electronic systems. How long do we have? Jake demanded. Maybe 2 minutes before they can fire, Carlos replied. Jake activated the ship's communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Tony Blake on the USS Constitution. We have detected an incoming EMP attack. Prepare for electronic systems failure. Implement Protocol 77 Alpha immediately. Communications Officer Beth Turner quickly sent the message to all human ships in the fleet. Within seconds, every captain and crew member knew what was coming. Zektar heard the announcement but didn't understand what Protocol 77 Alpha meant. He assumed it was either a retreat order or preparation for surrender. After all, if all their energy weapons stopped working, how could the humans continue to fight? On the Zephyrian flagship, the cascade weapon reached full power. Fire, ordered War Commander Vithkus. The purple energy burst out from the alien ship like an expanding bubble. It moved quickly through space, washing over both fleets in seconds. As it touched each vessel, electronics began to fail. On the USS Defiance, the lights went out. The main laser batteries powered down. Computer screens went dark. Emergency lighting came on, casting everything in a red glow. All primary weapons are offline, Amy reported, reading from a handheld device since her main console was dead. Laser batteries are completely drained. Plasma torpedoes won't launch. Carlos checked his engineering systems with a flashlight. Main power is down to emergency levels only. We can keep life support running, but that's about it. Jake looked around his darkened bridge. Half his crew was working by emergency lighting using backup instruments and handheld devices. Sir, Beth called out from her station, I managed to get one short-range radio working. All human ships report the same thing. Energy weapons are down. Main power is limited. Zektar watched this disaster with growing concern. The humans had been completely disabled by the alien weapon. Their advanced technology had failed them just as he had predicted. Now they were helpless. This is unfortunate, Zektar said to Lisa. Your fleet appears to be defenseless. Perhaps you should consider surrender. But Lisa was smiling. Even in the dim red light, Zektar could see her expression clearly. Defenseless? Lisa laughed. Who said anything about defenseless? Across the human fleet, something unexpected began to happen. Instead of retreating or sending surrender messages, the human ships started moving forward. They were heading straight toward the Zephyrian fleet. War Commander Vithkus watched this movement with confusion. His own ships were recharging their energy weapons after the cascade pulse, but the process would take several minutes. Why were the humans moving closer instead of running away? What are they doing? He asked his tactical officer. Their weapons don't work. Why are they approaching us? I don't know, sir. Maybe they plan to ram our ships? Vaithkas shook his head. That would be suicide. They must have some other plan. On the USS Defiance, Jake walked over to the ship's intercom system, which was still working on emergency power. All hands, this is the commander. The EMP attack has disabled our primary energy weapons, just as we expected might happen. It's time to show these aliens why we carry more than just laser guns. All Marine units prepare for close combat. All ships switch to kinetic weapon systems. Zektar heard this announcement and felt confused. Kinetic weapons? What could the humans possibly mean? He was about to find out why human soldiers still carried ammunition in a laser war. Deep inside the USS Defiance, Sergeant Pete Morris moved through the dark corridors with his flashlight. The emergency lighting cast red shadows on the walls as he made his way to the weapons storage area. All right, people, Pete called out to his Marines. Time to earn our pay. Forget the plasma rifles. We're going old school today. The Marines began pulling out their kinetic weapons, the same guns that Zektar had called primitive just an hour ago. But these weren't the simple firearms their grandfathers had used. These were advanced versions that used no electronics at all. Private Danny Walsh hefted his rifle and checked the magazine. Sergeant, are we really going to fight spaceships with bullet guns? Not just any bullets, Pete grinned in the dim light. These are special rounds. Tungsten cores designed to punch through armor. And the best part? They don't need any computer chips or electronic systems to work. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Commander Jake Sullivan was coordinating with the other ships in the fleet. The short-range radio crackled with messages from other captains. This is Captain Steve Parker on the New Jersey, came a voice through the static. Our railguns are online and ready. They run on mechanical power systems only. USS Detroit reporting, said another voice. Gauss cannons are charged and targeting manually. No electronics needed. Jake smiled as more reports came in. Every human ship in the fleet had weapons that could work without computer systems. They had planned for this exact situation. Zektar listened to these communications with growing confusion. What are railguns and Gauss cannons? He asked Lisa. Kinetic weapons, Lisa explained, checking her manual instruments. They fire solid, projectiles using magnetic fields or explosive charges. Very old technology, but we've made them much better over the years. But why would you use such primitive methods when laser weapons are more effective? Lisa looked at the crystal alien with amusement. Are laser weapons more effective right now? Zektar realized she had a point. All the laser weapons in both fleets were currently useless because of the electromagnetic pulse. But somehow the humans had prepared for this possibility. On the Zephyrian flagship, War Commander Vithkas was getting worried. His sensors showed the human ships continuing to approach, but he couldn't understand why. Sir, the human vessels are now within close combat range, his tactical officer reported. Should we fire our backup plasma weapons? Yes. Destroy them before they can do whatever they're planning, Vethkas ordered. The Zephyrian ships began firing their secondary energy weapons. Purple bolts of plasma shot toward the human fleet, but something strange happened when the shots hit the human vessels. Instead of the usual energy explosions, the plasma bolts seemed to bounce off strange new shields that the human ships had activated. What kind of shielding is that? Vaithkas demanded. His science officer checked his instruments. Sir, it appears to be some kind of physical barrier. Not an energy shield, but actual armor plating. Very thick armor plating. What the Zephyrians didn't know was that human ships were built differently than alien vessels. While other races focused on energy shields, humans had kept using heavy physical armor as backup protection. When their energy shields failed, the metal plating could still stop most attacks. Sir, the tactical officer called out urgently. The lead human ship is opening some kind of ports along its hull. Captain Steve Parker stood in the manual fire control room of the USS New Jersey. Without computers, his crew had to aim their weapons by hand, using mechanical sights and mathematical calculations. Target the closest Zephyrian cruiser, Steve ordered his gunner. Load tungsten penetrator rounds. The gunner, a tough woman named Kate Miller, adjusted the railgun's position using hand cranks. Target locked, sir. Ready to fire. Fire. The railgun launched its projectile with tremendous force. The tungsten rod, no bigger than a pencil but moving at incredible speed, shot across space toward the Zephyrian ship. War Commander Vithkas watched in horror as something small and fast punched completely through his cruiser's energy shields. The shields, designed to stop laser beams and plasma bolts, couldn't even slow down the solid projectile. The tungsten rod smashed through the ship's hull like it was made of paper. Secondary explosions erupted along the cruiser's length as the projectile tore through vital systems. Impossible, Vithkas hissed. How did they get through our shields? Sir, it appears their weapon fired a solid object, not an energy beam, his science officer reported with panic in his voice. Our shields are designed to disperse energy attacks. They can't stop physical projectiles moving at high speed. More human ships began firing their kinetic weapons. Railguns shot tungsten rods while Gauss cannons launched explosive shells. The Zephyrian fleet, so confident minutes ago, suddenly found their advanced shields completely useless. On the USS Defiance, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was calculating firing solutions with pencil and paper. Without computers, everything had to be done by hand. Commander, I have a target solution for the enemy flagship, she called out. Fire at will, Jake ordered. The Defiance's main railgun thundered, launching a tungsten penetrator directly at Vithkas's ship. The rod punched through the flagship's shields and hull, causing massive damage to their engine room. Zektar watched this destruction with amazement. The humans had turned a desperate situation into a crushing victory in just a few minutes. I don't understand, he said to Lisa. How did you know their shields wouldn't stop solid projectiles? Because we studied Zephyrian technology before this battle, Lisa explained. All their defenses are built around stopping energy weapons. Nobody in the galaxy uses kinetic weapons anymore, so they never prepared for them. But how did you know they would use an electromagnetic pulse weapon? Lisa smiled. We didn't know for sure, but we always prepare for the possibility that our main weapons might fail. That's why we keep backup systems that work completely differently. Across the battlefield, the tide had completely turned. The Zephyrian ships, built for high-tech energy warfare, were being torn apart by weapons that used simple physics, solid objects moving very fast. Captain Danny Wright led a boarding party from his ship to a damaged Zephyrian vessel. His Marines carried their kinetic rifles, ready for close combat. Remember, Danny told his troops as they prepared to board the enemy ship, their personal energy shields won't stop bullets any better than their ship shields did. The Marines launched toward the alien vessel in small pods. These pods had no electronic systems at all, just simple rockets and mechanical controls that couldn't be disrupted by electromagnetic interference. War Commander Vithkas realized his fleet was doomed. Half his ships were already destroyed or badly damaged. The rest were trying to retreat, but the human vessels were faster than expected. Sir, we're receiving a communication from the human fleet, his communications officer reported. Put it through. Commander Jake Sullivan's voice came through the speakers. Zephyrian vessels, this is the human fleet. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and we will accept your peaceful submission. Vithkas looked around his damaged bridge. Emergency lights flickered and smoke filled the air. His advanced technology had failed him completely. How? He asked into the communicator. How did you defeat us so easily? Jake's response was calm and confident. You prepared for the war you expected to fight. We prepared for the war we might have to fight. There's a big difference. The Zephyrian commander realized he had learned a painful lesson about human warfare. These beings didn't just rely on their best technology, they kept older methods ready in case the new ones failed. For the first time in the battle, Vithkas understood why human soldiers still carried ammunition in a laser war. Sometimes the old ways worked better than anyone expected. War Commander Vithka stared at his tactical display in disbelief. In less than 10 minutes, his powerful fleet had been reduced to burning wreckage. 3 of his ships were completely destroyed, and the rest were badly damaged and trying to escape. "Sir, the humans are pursuing our retreating vessels," his tactical officer reported. "Their ships are faster than we thought possible." Vithka slammed his clawed hand on his command chair. "How are they moving so quickly? Their main engines should be damaged from the electromagnetic pulse." "Sir, it appears they have backup propulsion systems that don't rely on advanced electronics," came the frightened reply. "Simple chemical rockets and basic fusion drives." The Zephyrian commander felt a cold fear growing in his chest. These humans had backup systems for everything. While his own people had built ships that relied completely on advanced technology, the humans had prepared for every possible failure. On the USS New Jersey, Captain Steve Parker coordinated the pursuit of fleeing Zephyrian vessels. His ship's emergency lighting cast strange shadows across the bridge as his crew worked with manual controls. "Captain, we have 3 enemy ships trying to reach the jump point," reported his navigator, using an old-fashioned telescope to track. "The alien vessels. Can we catch them before they escape?" Steve asked. "Yes, sir. Our backup engines are faster than their damaged main drives." Steve nodded. "Continue pursuit. Don't let any of them get away." Meanwhile, Captain Danny Wright's boarding party had successfully entered the damaged Zephyrian cruiser. His Marines moved through the alien ship's corridors, their kinetic rifles ready for combat. The interior of the Zephyrian vessel was unlike anything the humans had seen before. The walls glowed with soft light, and strange symbols covered every surface. But the beauty of the ship couldn't hide the damage caused by human weapons. "Sergeant Kate Miller, take your squad to the bridge," Danny ordered through his radio. "I'll head to their engine room. We need to secure this ship before they can activate any self-destruct systems." Kate Miller led her Marines down a curved hallway. The Zephyrians had built their ship like a work of art, but human tungsten rods had punched holes through the beautiful walls. "Contact ahead," one of her soldiers whispered. 3 aliens with weapons. Kate peered around a corner and saw 3 Zephyrian soldiers holding energy rifles. They looked confused and scared, pressing buttons on their weapons that wouldn't respond. Their energy weapons aren't working, Kate realized. The electromagnetic pulse disabled their guns too. She stepped into the open, her kinetic rifle aimed at the aliens. "Drop your weapons and surrender," she called out. The Zephyrians looked at her strange weapon with fear. They had never seen anything like it before. One of them tried to activate his energy rifle again, but nothing happened. "I said drop them," Kate repeated. The aliens looked at each other, then slowly placed their useless weapons on the floor. They had no choice but to surrender to the human soldiers with their primitive but working guns. Back on the USS Defiance, Zektar was frantically taking notes on his recording device. Everything he had believed about human military capability was proving wrong. "This is incredible," he said to Chief Science Officer Lisa Grant. "Your species has defeated a technologically superior enemy using what appeared to be inferior weapons." Lisa smiled as she checked her manual instruments. "That's the thing about humans, Zektar. We don't just prepare for success. We prepare for failure too. I don't understand. Other species focus on perfecting their best technology. Why do humans maintain so many different systems?" "Because perfection is dangerous," Lisa explained. "If you have only one solution to a problem and that solution fails, you have nothing left. But if you have 5 different solutions, you can keep fighting even when 4 of them don't work." Commander Jake Sullivan walked over to join their conversation. "It's called redundancy, Zektar. Every critical system on our ships has at least 2 backup methods. Our ancestors learned this lesson the hard way during the early space wars." "What happened during those wars?" Zektar asked. Jake's expression grew serious. Earth ships that relied only on advanced technology were easily defeated by simple tactics. Ships with computer-controlled everything were destroyed by basic electromagnetic attacks. We learned that the most sophisticated weapon isn't always the best weapon. Through the ship's communication system, reports continued to come in from across the human fleet. Every boarding party was successful because the Zephyrians had no working weapons to fight back with. USS Detroit has secured the enemy supply ship, came one report. Their crew surrendered without resistance. USS Boston reports successful capture of a Zephyrian destroyer, said another voice. We found interesting technology in their weapon systems. War Commander Vithkas heard these reports through his own damaged communications equipment. His proud fleet was being captured ship by human soldiers carrying what he had thought were museum pieces. Commander, his communications officer called out weakly, we're being boarded. Human soldiers have entered our ship through the hull breach. Vithkas looked around his bridge at his crew. Their energy weapons were dead, their advanced systems were offline, and human marines with working guns were approaching. Sir, what are your orders? Asked his tactical officer. Before Vithkas could answer, the bridge doors opened. Captain Danny Wright stepped through, his kinetic rifle aimed at the Zephyrian commander. Behind him came 3 more human marines, all carrying weapons that actually worked. War Commander Vithkas, I presume, Danny said calmly. I'm Captain Wright of the human fleet. Your ship is now under our control. Vithkas studied the human officer. Danny was smaller than the Zephyrian commander, and his weapon looked crude compared to alien technology. But it was Danny who was in control of the situation. How? Vithkas asked. How did you know we would use the Cascade weapon? Danny lowered his rifle slightly but kept it ready. We didn't know for certain, but our intelligence suggested you had electromagnetic pulse capabilities, so we prepared for that possibility. By carrying primitive weapons? By carrying reliable weapons, Danny corrected. These rifles will work in any environment. They don't need computers, power sources, or electronic targeting systems. Point and shoot. Simple and effective. Sergeant Kate Miller's voice came through Danny's radio. Captain, we've secured the bridge and engine room. The ship is ours. Acknowledged, Danny replied. Then he looked back at Vithkas. Commander, I'm placing you and your crew under arrest as prisoners of war. You will be treated according to galactic law. Vithkas slowly stood up from his command chair. His scales had lost their bright color, and his eyes showed defeat. I underestimated your species completely. Most people do, Danny said. They see our mixed technology and think we can't decide what we want to use. They don't realize we're keeping our options open. As the Zephyrian crew was led away by human marines, Vithkas couldn't stop thinking about the lesson he had learned. His people had built the most advanced weapons in known space, but they had forgotten that sometimes the simplest solutions worked best. The humans hadn't won because they had better technology. They had won because they understood that technology could fail, and they had prepared for that failure. On the USS Defiance, Commander Jake Sullivan received the final report of the battle. All enemy vessels have been captured or destroyed, Communications Officer Beth Turner announced. Total human casualties, 12 wounded, none killed. Enemy casualties, significant. Jake nodded with satisfaction. The battle that was supposed to test human capabilities had instead become a demonstration of human military philosophy. Zektar finished his notes and looked up at the humans around him. These beings had just taught the galaxy a lesson about the dangers of over-relying on advanced technology. The war was far from over, but the first major battle had ended with a complete human victory, and it had been won not with the most advanced weapons, but with the most reliable ones. 3 hours after the battle ended, War Commander Vithkas sat in the conference room aboard the USS Defiance. His hands were bound with simple metal restraints, not the high-tech energy shackles his own people would have used. Even the humans. Prisoner restraints were low-tech but effective. Admiral Tony Blake entered the room, followed by Commander Jake Sullivan and several other human officers. The Admiral was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had commanded human fleets for over 20 years. War Commander Vithkas, Admiral Blake said as he sat down across from the Zephyrian. I want to discuss the terms of your surrender. Vithkas looked up at the human admiral. His reptilian features showed confusion more than anger. Before we talk about surrender, I must ask you something. How did you know to prepare for electromagnetic pulse attacks? Admiral Blake leaned back in his chair. We didn't know you had that specific weapon. But we fought enough battles to understand that enemies always try to disable your best weapons first, so we keep weapons that can't be disabled. But your kinetic weapons seem so primitive compared to laser technology. Primitive? Admiral, Blake smiled. Commander Sullivan, would you explain our weapons to our guest? Jake stepped forward. War Commander, those tungsten rods that destroyed your ships were moving at 30% the speed of light. They hit with more force than most energy weapons. The rifles our Marines carry can fire rounds that will punch through 6 inches of steel armor. Vithka stared at the human officer. But they use such simple mechanisms. Chemical explosives and mechanical triggers. Simple doesn't mean weak, Jake replied. Our ancestors learned that complicated weapons break down when you need them most. Simple weapons keep working no matter what happens. Dr. Nina Clark, the fleet's chief scientist, joined the conversation. She was a small woman with bright eyes, who had studied alien technology for years. War Commander, may I ask you something? She said. When your people designed your ships, did you consider what would happen if your energy weapon stopped working? Vithkas thought about this question. No, our technology is very reliable. We assumed it would always function properly. That's the difference between your military thinking and ours, Dr. Clark explained. We assume everything will break eventually, so we design backup systems for our backup systems. Zektar, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. This is fascinating. Your species has a completely different approach to warfare than any other race in the galaxy. Admiral Blake turned to the crystal alien. Zektar, you've been observing our methods. What will you report to the Galactic Alliance? Zektar's blue light pulsed as he considered his answer. I will tell them that humans are not technologically backward as we thought. You are strategically advanced in ways we never considered. What do you mean? Asked Commander Sullivan. Other species, including my own, focus on perfecting single solutions to problems. We build the best energy shields, the most powerful laser, weapons the fastest computers, but humans build multiple solutions to the same problem. Dr. Clark nodded. We call it the principle of redundancy. If one system fails, another takes its place. War Commander Vithkas looked around the room at the human officers. Your ships carry laser weapons, kinetic weapons, plasma weapons, and projectile weapons. Your soldiers train with energy rifles and bullet guns. You have electronic systems and mechanical systems for the same tasks. Exactly, Admiral Blake said. It makes our ships heavier and more expensive, but it also makes them much harder to defeat. I understand now, Vithkas said slowly. You prepared for a war where your main weapons might not work. We prepared for a war where our main weapons would work perfectly. Communications Officer Beth Turner entered the conference room. Admiral, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Word of our victory is spreading quickly. What kind of messages? Admiral Blake asked. Military leaders from several species want to know how we defeated the Zephyrians so easily. Some are asking if we can teach them our methods. Zektar's crystal body shimmered with excitement. This battle will change military thinking throughout the galaxy. Every species will want to learn from human tactics. Admiral Blake stood up and walked to the room's small window. Outside he could see the captured Zephyrian ships being towed by human vessels. War Commander, he said without turning around, I'm going to make you an offer. Your fleet is destroyed, and your crew is captured. But this war doesn't have to continue. Vithkas looked up with surprise. What do you mean? The Zephyrian Empire attacked human colonies because you believed we were weak. You've learned that we're not. Are you willing to discuss peace? The reptilian commander was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. My government will not believe that humans defeated our best fleet. They will think I am lying. Then we'll provide proof, Admiral Blake said. Dr. Clark, prepare a complete technical analysis of how this battle was fought. Include detailed information about our weapons and tactics. Dr. Clark looked surprised. Sir, shouldn't we keep that information secret? No, the Admiral replied. I want every species in the galaxy to understand what happened here. If they learn from our example, future wars might be shorter and cost fewer lives. Sergeant Pete Morris entered the room and saluted. Admiral, the prisoners are secure. and the captured ships are ready for transport. Thank you, Sergeant. How? Are your Marines? Proud, sir. They finally got to use those old-fashioned weapons they've been carrying around. Admiral Blake turned back to Vithkas. Sergeant Morris spent years training his troops to fight with kinetic weapons. Other officers thought he was wasting time on outdated methods. But you supported him, Vithkas observed. Because diversity of tactics wins wars, the Admiral explained. If all your soldiers fight the same way, a smart enemy can defeat all of them with one strategy. But if your soldiers can fight in many different ways, the enemy never knows what to expect. Zektar was recording everything on his device. Admiral Blake, will you allow me to interview your soldiers about their training methods? Of course, I want the galaxy to understand how humans think about warfare. Dr. Clark looked at her tablet computer. Admiral, I'm getting reports from our intelligence sources. Several alien military academies are already requesting information about human tactics. Good, Admiral Blake smiled. Maybe other species will start keeping backup weapons too. War Commander Vithika stood up slowly. Admiral, I will recommend to my government that we accept your peace terms. This battle has shown me that humans are not the weak species we believed you to be. We're not weak, Admiral Blake agreed, but we're also not interested in conquering other species. We just want to be left alone to develop in peace. What will happen to my crew? They'll be treated well and returned to Zephyrian space when a peace treaty is signed. Your ships will be returned too after we study them. Vithkas nodded. That is more generous than I expected. Commander Sullivan stepped forward. War Commander, you asked earlier why we still carry ammunition in a laser war. Do you understand now? Vithkas looked at the human officer with new respect. Yes. You carry ammunition because you understand that the universe is unpredictable. You prepare for problems that might never happen, and when they do happen, you're ready. Exactly, Jake said. We learned long ago that the best plan is to have more than one plan. Admiral Blake moved toward the door. Gentlemen, this battle is over, but there's still work to do. Dr. Clark, I want that technical report ready within 24 hours. Zektar, you're free to interview anyone in the fleet. As the meeting ended, Zektar approached Admiral Blake. Admiral, I believe this battle will be remembered as the day the galaxy learned why humans are successful warriors. Not because you have the best weapons, but because you understand that all weapons can fail. Admiral Blake paused at the door. Zektar, I hope you're right. And I hope other species learn from our example before they make the same mistake the Zephyrians did. The crystal alien watched the human officers leave the room. In his notes, he wrote, Humans have taught the galaxy that true military strength comes not from having the perfect weapon, but from being prepared when the perfect weapon doesn't work. Within weeks, the story of the battle would spread across known space. Military academies would study human tactics, and weapon designers would begin creating backup systems for their backup systems. The day aliens learned why humans still carry ammunition in a laser war became the day the galaxy learned a new way to think about warfare.